when it made landfall 47 years ago. So that's the last major hurricane to make landfall here, and something that people still remember, those that were alive back in the day. So definitely a big concern. Welcome back to our coverage of Hurricane Harvey here on the Weather Channel. We are Hurricane Central. I'm in Corpus Christi. I have Corpus Christi Bay off to my right here, which continues to get more and more angry throughout this afternoon. And the landfall is a few hours away. And as bad as the weather is right now, it will only continue to get worse. So we're getting close to time where if you have not evacuated, it's almost too dangerous to evacuate at this point, but you still see people on the roads. There are no mandatory evacuations for Nueces County and this area of Corpus Christi, but it's just dealing with this. It's best to ride this one inside in the same place and hope and pray for the best. Let's get the very latest on what's going on. Again, new advisory in on Hurricane Harvey. Let's get the latest now with Dr. Erica Navarro back in the studio.
Yeah, thanks so much, Paul. We're seeing the effects of this storm as it's making the approach to the coast, and with the latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center, winds are estimated at 125 miles per hour, so a very strong storm that we're dealing with here. We're seeing gusts in the Corpus Christi area up to 48 miles per hour, but they have been gusting higher than that. At the airport, not too far from there, we had a gust earlier today in the 70-mile-per-hour range, so things are certainly starting to pick up here, and we're watching this system very carefully as it does so, because we're anticipating increased impacts through the weekend and into early next week. This is the European model and forecast of rainfall. We're talking the potential for devastating and life-threatening rainfall totals here in the Houston area. Paul, we're talking about 20 inches of rain, and even in your area in Corpus Christi, things absolutely still look to be the same.
Yeah, the winds are very strong at this point, and the rainfall is also one of the sneaky concerns that people perhaps haven't gotten their mind around. You talked about some of the models that print out not only 10 or 14,
in the Corpus Christi area up to 48 miles per hour,
inches of rain, because as you talked about with the path of Harvey, it comes in and then basically stalls. And it doesn't even pass the Houston area to some models say Monday, some say Wednesday. And it's Friday afternoon right now, so an incredible duration we'll be dealing with Hurricane Harvey. Just joining us, welcome to Hurricane Central on the Weather Channel. I'm meteorologist Paul Goodlow, and a very wind-whipped Corpus Christi right now. Winds gusting easily over 60 miles per hour at times as we're waiting on the approach of a Hurricane Harvey. And also a big welcome to our viewers on Local Now. We're having special coverage on Local Now because of the approach of Hurricane Harvey. And here, hard to breathe here as the wind is whipping and the rain is stinging in the face. But we do have an update on the strength of Hurricane Harvey. Let's get more now from our senior hurricane specialist, Brian Norcross, back in the studio.
Wow, Paul, be safe. Paul, by the way, is on high ground in Corpus Christi. We're not concerned for the storm surge in that part of Corpus Christi, but we are terribly concerned for the storm surge threat, the wind threat, and the flooding threat for the entire Corpus Christi area, especially to the north of the city. Here's the new advisory just in from the National Hurricane Center. Winds at 125 miles per hour now, and yes, there is potential for further strengthening before the storm comes ashore. It's moving at 10. And so you see it's 60 miles from Corpus Christi, a little bit less than that from the coast. So it looks like landfall, if it continues at this speed, on the order of 10 o'clock this evening, although all indications are from the models that it will slow down. So somewhere between, let's say, 10 o'clock and midnight tonight when the core of it comes ashore. But as you saw from Paul, it is already underway. Let's look at it a close up here. I'll show you what's happened with the storm today. What's happened here is it's gotten a new eye wall and a new bigger eye wall, and that slowed down the process of intensification. And now what's happening is this eye wall looks like it's trying to fill in and perhaps shrink, and there's plenty of warm water between here and the coastline for it to continue to do that for the next few hours. So the indications are perhaps a slightly stronger storm, certainly a Category 3, and I mean it could go over, it only has to go to 130 to be a Category 4. So this is going to be a tremendous epic hurricane for this part of the coast. Now let me tell you a little, the only slice of good news in this entire thing is between Corpus Christi here and Port O'Connor and Port Lavaca up in here. This is a very unpopulated part of that Texas coast. The coastal bend, this is called, in Texas right there. And so if this storm comes ashore here, where the, say it makes landfall about there, where the onshore flow and the worst of the winds are right there between Corpus Christi and Port O'Connor and Port Lavaca, I mean, that's the best possible thing. But the effects of the storm are going to be tremendous in both directions. So I'm just saying that that's one little bit of news that is a little bit positive in everything else that we've got going here. On the outer fringes of it, if you look up here, look up there toward Galveston and Houston. Let me move the map a little bit here so you can see and move that Galveston identifier out of the way. These are tornado warnings up in here. So on these outer bands coming in on the fringes, we're going to continue to have in this band and this band and this band the possibility of tornadoes with the system. And that possibility is going to continue not just today, tomorrow, through the weekend, into next week, because the idea is now that this system is likely to stay in Texas and not move on out. There you see the movement. It looks like the center is going to come ashore just north of Corpus Christi, but you're going to be very close to that western eye wall, Paul, there in the city of Corpus Christi. So it is just now beginning. All right, lots more in just a little bit. Back to Paul.
All right, thanks, Brian. And it's even difficult to look at the camera as strong as the winds are blowing here. If you make a valid point, yes, it could be a little farther north than the center, but as you noted, Harvey is not just a point, not a center. It's a huge hurricane here. Right now, 125 of our hurricane. So you'll definitely get lashed by the eye wall here in Corpus, even on the west side of that center. So we're still expecting perhaps wind gusts well over 100 miles per hour. Not quite there yet, but even a wind gust over 6, like we're dealing now with, it's still pretty rough to deal with. But you also mentioned the threat for tornadoes. There's a hurricane watch not up here for Nueces County and Corpus, but all the counties north of here along the coast because of the approach of Harvey. Let's check back to the studio with Alex Wallace about that tornado threat. And Alex, there are already tornado warnings going on right now for some counties.
Yeah, you said it, Paul. That is also going to be an additional threat that we have to deal with here, and ongoing tornado warnings that are in effect at this current time as this cyclone is getting closer and closer to the coast. We got 2 tornado warnings in effect right now. I want to get in a little bit closer now. This is south and east of Houston, not too far from Galveston. There's Galveston. The storm itself, the most dangerous part of the storm, is now lifted to the north and the west of Galveston itself. But Galveston County is underneath this tornado warning at 4:15. So we have about another 10 minutes or so to deal with this. Unfortunately, getting word here from storm spotters that there was actually a tornado spotted with this particular warning here, located over Bayou Vista at a point or near La Marquis. That was around 3:47 or so, and damage was reported at a McDonald's sign. So this has been proven here by Weather Spot to be the case here with this tornado warning. So heads up here if you're in these areas to get in your safe zone now, because this storm means business there just south and west of Texas City. We have another tornado warning in effect here as you head on off towards the west, just hit Brazoria, Matagorda, and Wharton counties. That's out until 4:15 as well, so for about another 10 minutes or so. Storm continuing to move on off towards the west, now west of Sweeney there at this time, moving basically to the north and the west, right around 30 to 40 miles per hour there. So these things are moving very, very quickly here, and this is all within a zone that is underneath a tornado watch until 2 a.m. So we have several hours of having to deal with the potential for tornadoes here. Conditions are just ripe, as you often find when a tropical cyclone begins to make that landfall. You've got potential for tornadoes. So within this region here, just north of Corpus Christi, up towards Houston, sliding to the south of Lake Charles. There into Louisiana, that tornado watch is out till 2 a.m. Central Time here. So we're going to keep an eye on those areas. Today, the potential impacts again do include tornadoes here. Severe threat extends all the way back towards the west, including down towards Corpus Christi, down towards the Raymondville area as well. So there's a large swath that'll be potentially dealing with the potential for tornadoes here for the rest of the day. Houston included, back over towards Victoria as well. These things, you tend to be short-lived, pop up very quickly, short-lived, and tend to be on the sort of weaker end of the scale, but that does not mean they can't cause some problems and cause some damage out there as well. I believe there's another warning out now. We're being extended out until 4:30 for another tornado warning storm. That's for that same storm there that was in Galveston County, now being extended on off towards the west bit now to include Santa Fe. Bayou Vista still included in that, and Hitchcock now. That's out until 4:30. So this again is for that same storm where weather spotters did report a tornado caused damage to a McDonald's sign, and now continuing on off towards the west until 4:30. We'll have to keep a very close eye on that. Sea Delta now if you're in and around Santa Fe. All right, let's get back out now to Paul Goodlow, who's out there in the thick of things right now. Paul, very, very gusty winds you're dealing with.
And wow, as bad as it looks right now, and as bad as it feels, it will only get worse as we head throughout the rest of today into tonight, as we have a Hurricane Harvey continue this way, and hopefully the models will be correct. We're at weekends before it makes landfall. Right now, a Category 3, 125 miles per hour. It is just strengthened over the last couple hours or so as it makes landfall sometime later on tonight. The bad news is it will continue to slow down a little bit, and that's the big concern. The last benchmark hurricane here in Corpus was back 47 years ago. That was Hurricane Celia. And Hurricane came in and then kept going. Yes, it dumped some rain, but maybe 4 to 7 inches. It wasn't that bad. The concern now is the huge flood threat. Yes, we have a wind, we have a surge threat currently with landfall of Harvey, but it's going to be the ongoing flood threat not only here on the coast, but well inland, even as you head up towards the Houston area, much of East Texas into Louisiana. There's a huge flood threat. Of course, there are flood watches issued, but this is the type of flood threat that we have not seen here in, I'd say, what, 16 years or so? Remember Hurricane Allison in Houston? Devastating flooding for days and days of rain. We can see the same thing, except it's not just going to be Houston. It's going to be all the coastal areas. It's going to be up towards San Antonio, could be as far north as Austin, but also as far east as much of East Texas. Houston, you're included in that. Galveston, all the coastal counties, and even into Louisiana as well. So an ongoing flood threat into next week. Some models don't have it leaving Houston until Wednesday. So we'll talk more about that. But right now, in fact, we're listening to a press conference of the mayor of Houston right now.
Here as well. And so thank you all. And let me just tell you, I certainly appreciate the efforts of the first responders for the city of Houston. Chief Esteveda, thank you so very much. HPD, Chief Pena, thank you. And certainly County Sheriff Gonzalez. Let me just say this is a large community, but we're speaking maybe different voices, but the same message. I echo every single thing County Judge Ed Emmett had to say. For the City of Houston, tonight we're going to be operating with the essential personnel only, and that would be the case from now until Sunday night. And then we'll constantly evaluate things as we proceed through the weekend. The weekend municipal courts will be closed. Okay, the park event scheduled for this weekend are canceled. The library will be closed. BARC will be closed with the exception of for emergency purposes. We want people to be alert, prepared, informed, on guard, stocked up, patient, sheltered, calm, and ready. And want to thank the people in the community for taking the necessary steps to be prepared. Chaos and panic, are our enemies, and we all know that. Over the next few days, as the judge has said, it's now a hurricane not hitting us, and then will be a tropical storm, and no telling where it will go. and that's why I think it's so important for us to pay special attention. We are expecting a lot of rain. This is a rainmaker. Not going to get too much of the wind. We'll be on the edge of that. But this is a rainmaker. And there are different reports, anywhere from some say 15 to 25, some say 20 to 30. We simply do not know. We're going to hope and pray for the best. But let's assume that there will be a lot of rain. The bayous, the water could come out of the bayous and just overpower our capabilities. And so in that case, we are ready to step in. All of the high water vehicle vessels, for example, are positioned and ready to go to evacuate people if need be. I certainly want to thank. We've already been working with the Red Cross. Identified about 56 different possible locations for shelter already. The faith-based community has stepped up. Way more than about 30 churches have made themselves available, so I certainly want to appreciate the faith-based community. So we're going to do our part. And then what I will say to you, over the weekend, and as we progress into the weekend, especially Saturday evening, Sunday, Monday, just stay off the roads. I think that's the best thing. Just stay off the roads. And if you just have to be out on the road, I think we all know that there are certain streets and intersections that are prone to flood, So, be very cautious, turn around, don't drown. But the best thing was just to stock up on some food, some games. You got kids, stay at home. Lastly, what I would say, especially for our senior citizens and the disabled community and low-income individuals, for our senior citizens, this is the time for us to be neighborly. Check on our senior citizens. We don't want people to be in their homes by themselves, and if areas to start the flood, then they're fending for themselves. So check on our senior citizens. Let's be neighborly. Same thing with the disabled community.
We were listening to a press conference there out of Houston with the Houston mayor there, the concerns, and one of the last things he said is be neighborly. Now's the time to think of your neighbors and to keep an eye on them, because it's not just for today. This threat, this flood threat, this heavy rain threat will continue well into next week. So, again, love thy neighbor. Watch out for everyone, because, again, with this hurricane, it's going to be a hurricane, then a tropical storm, then maybe a depression. For days now. We've been saying this for almost a week. Hurricane Harvey is not just a sprint, it's a marathon, and it is just beginning. We're in the warm-up phases of a long stretch with Hurricane Harvey. More Hurricane Central after this.
Let's dance, Grandma.
You don't let anything keep you sidelined.
Come on.
That's why you drink Ensure with 9 grams of protein and 26 vitamins and minerals for the strength and energy to get back to doing what you love. Ensure, always be you.
For a limited time, you can get this fresh, juicy Boston Market rotisserie chicken for $1.99 when you buy any family meal. Now, your next few dinners are taken care of. Boston Market.
With Scotch Blue Platinum Painter's Tape, you can prep any angle quicker and easier. 3M's advanced poly material helps stop paint seepage, and it's easy to remove in one long pull, so you can pull off a better paint job. Scotch Blue Platinum Painter's Tape.
Beyond is a natural pet food that goes beyond assuming ingredients are safe to knowing they are. Going beyond expectations because our pets deserve it. Beyond natural pet food.
It's your first day on the job. Walk in like you own the place. Now at Men's Warehouse, get 3 for $99 dress shirts plus buy one, get one on select items. It's time to like the way you look.
We're making Oscar Mayer hot dogs better than ever, with no artificial preservatives in all of our meat, and no added nitrates or nitrites in every single one. So fire up the grill before summer's over, and finish summer strong with Oscar Mayer.
You could be my love, even if the sky is falling down. I know it will be safe and sound.
So many Americans struggle with finances. Starting today, State Farm is here to help. giving us all a chance to simply sit down and learn. Visit Let's Start Today.
It's strengthened into trust. Trust in the Weather Channel. To us, nothing matters more. Every season, every storm, every time you watch, trust the Weather Channel.
Your paycheck. Your family depends on it. But if something happened to you, you need life insurance. And chances are SelectQuote can get it for you for under $1 a day.
SelectQuote found Alec, 38, a $500,000 policy for under $23 a month. SelectQuote found Kenesha, 37, a $750,000 policy for $19 a month.
SelectQuote's secret? They impartially shop a select group of highly rated companies like these for your best rates. Give your family the security it needs at a price you can afford.
Since 1985, SelectQuote has saved over 1 million families millions of dollars on life insurance. Call now, 800-311-6499, or go to SelectQuote.com. Discover what over 1 million families already know. We shop, you save.
I think what makes the Weather Channel's coverage unique is that we are meteorologists. We know the weather, and that makes a tremendous difference.
Currently in our area, 72 degrees under mostly cloudy skies. Tonight, partly cloudy, low 52. Winds north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Saturday, generally sunny, high 76. Winds light and variable. Saturday night, clear, low 54. Winds light and variable. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Welcome back to Hurricane Central. Meteorologist Paul Goodlow in Corpus Christi, Texas. We're dealing with some of the strongest winds so far this afternoon. I'm literally holding on just to look out for some debris from these palm trees, as well as able to stand up here. We're dealing with the approach of Hurricane Harvey all afternoon long. Latest advisory has us now an even stronger Category 3, 125 mile per hour winds here in the Gulf of Mexico. And it continues to move closer and closer, making a landfall sometime late tonight into early Saturday morning. Here in Corpus, we're hoping we're on the west side of the center, but still we're going to have some eye wall issues to go through, and the winds at times gusting over 60 get even stronger as we head throughout the rest of this afternoon into tonight and into the landfall of Hurricane Harvey. The last time we had landfall of a Category 3 hours on how bad Mother Nature can be during hurricane season. Let's go back to the studio now to Alex Wallace. Alex.
All right, thanks so much, Paul. Indeed, out there braving some of those strong, big-time winds. Tough times there for sure. We'll be checking back with him in just a bit. We do want to bring in a guest here to talk about what's happening there across southeastern portions of Texas, following what's happening in terms of the preparations that are in place at this time, where, of course, folks are trying to get hopefully already prepared for what is taking place out there at this point. Hopefully we have them on the line.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great, fantastic. All right, so we do want to bring Lieutenant Honore in and talk about the preparations here. And Lieutenant, you know, you're best known, of course, for coordinating military relief efforts after Hurricane Katrina, no doubt. You're coming in now from Baton Rouge. Earlier, you did say that the president should preemptively declare a major disaster and the Texas governor has asked him to do so. Do you think the prep today has been sufficient so far?
I think preparing for landfall, the only concern I would have for preparation for landfall and the predictions of the surge water that your experts have been doing an eloquent job in describing is that we should have had a mandatory evacuation of Corpus Christi. And I recognize I'm second guessing there, but that is my judgment. We should have had a mandatory evacuation of Corpus Christi because it is inside the cone of uncertainty, inside where the landfall will happen. Bad things are going to happen in there with the wind. The elevation in Corpus Christi is right at 7 feet. There's predictions of surge water on the right front of that storm going up to 10 to 12 feet. So automatically you see the inlet waters that come in and out of Corpus is going to take that into low-lying areas. And that's combined with maybe up to a foot of water that will fall there before and after a landfall. But landfall is like the first quarter of this storm. The second part of it is that this storm is going to linger around. It will go from a Category 3 down to a tropical storm within the first 12 hours of meeting landfall tonight. But it's going to stay around and dump up to 1.5 feet of water between Corpus Christi and Houston. That's the second quarter of this storm to deal with, is the inland flooding that's going to occur in this coastal Texas area, which many of it is littered with the refineries and chemical plants and the small towns that did not evacuate other than, yes.
Well, Lieutenant General Russell Honore, we're going to get a chance to talk back with you certainly in a bit. Thanks for your info. We'll be back in just a tad.
I love you, a bustle and a peck. You bet your birdie like I do.
While other insurance companies just say a house, we see the home you've worked really hard for.
Now at the Honda Summerbration sales event, you can get a great deal on a Honda Civic and keep things festive all summer long. Your unforgettable summer begins today with a trip to the Honda Summerbration sales event. The sun is setting on these amazing deals. Get a Honda Civic today from KBB.com's best value brand. Ends September 5th.
Need deep, long-lasting pain relief? Try Salonpas Deep Relieving Gel. 3 powerful medicines penetrate and treat pain for up to 8 hours. Need faster relief? Try Salonpas Jet Spray. Works on contact, freezing pain fast. Salonpas.
The day after chemo might mean a trip back to the doctor's office, just for a shot. But why go back there when you can stay home with Neulasta Onpro?
Strong chemo can put you at risk of serious infection. Neulasta helps reduce infection risk by boosting your white blood cell count, which strengthens your immune system. In a key study, Neulasta reduced the risk of infection from 17% to 1%, a 94% decrease. Applied the day of chemo, Neulasta Onpro is designed to deliver Neulasta the next day. Neulasta is for certain cancer patients receiving strong chemotherapy. Do not take Neulasta if you're allergic to Neulasta or Neupogen, filgrastim. Ruptured spleen, sometimes fatal as well as serious lung problems, allergic reactions, kidney injuries, and capillary leak syndrome have occurred. Report abdominal or shoulder tip pain, trouble breathing, or allergic reactions to your doctor right away. In patients with sickle cell disorders, serious, sometimes fatal crises can occur. The most common side effect is bone and muscle ache.
So why go back there? If you'd rather be home, ask your doctor about Neulasta Onpro.
You asked for it, you got it. Steak and Lobster is back at Outback. Starting at $15.99 for a limited time, pairing our signature steaks with a mouth-watering steamed lobster tail. Starting at only $15.99, it's time to get back to Outback.
When you've been making delicious natural cheese for over 100 years like Kraft has, you learn a lot about what people want.
Honey, do we have like a super creamy cheese with tough spice already in it? Oh, thanks.
Bon appetit cheese.
Okay.
The moment you realize you're lucky your backyard is in the back.
At Lowe's, we'll help you find the lawn care products that are perfect for your area so you can easily get your yard looking great. All projects have a starting point. Start with Lowe's.
Get this Cobalt 40-volt max cordless trimmer at the Lowe's Labor Day Savings Event.
As Harvey's path continues, there is one place to turn to and to trust, keeping you ahead of the storm. Experts tracking every possible path, whether we're getting you through it or taking you to it. Trust in the Weather Channel.
Closed captioning brought to you by Aruba, One Happy Island.
Welcome back. Continuing coverage of Hurricane Harvey as it gets closer and closer to the Texas coast. We've got Paul Goodlow, who's in Corpus Christi. We're going to check in with him in just a bit to get the very latest on some of the conditions. He's been battling some really strong and gusty winds. Again, we'll check back with him in just a bit. We do have our senior hurricane specialist, Brian Norcross, who is tracking Harvey right now. And Brian, powerful, formidable system getting closer and closer to land.
And no good news at all here. Well, let me rephrase that. There's one tiny little slice of good news I'm going to show you. But generally, the system is getting stronger. It still has stronger tendencies before it comes ashore. It's already a Category 3. It may be a Category 4. And it's going to be ashore tonight. It has already begun. The event of landfall has already begun here in the Corpus Christi area. Here is the latest advisory at 5 o'clock. 125 mile-an-hour winds was the estimate at that time. The pressure, 941, was the latest measurement, moving northwest at 10. Now, 60 miles from Corpus Christi, but you can see that's a little bit longer than to the coast. So I would say it's maybe 45 miles or so to the coast. If it keeps up that 10-mile-an-hour range, you're talking about 4.5 hours from now. You're talking about 10 o'clock tonight, although it's supposed to slow down. Now, we haven't seen the signs of that yet, but it's supposed to slow down. Now, look at this. This is the incredible satellite picture from our new NOAA NASA satellite, the GOES, there it is right there, the GOES 16, just spectacular view, but we can also see a couple things here. Look at the motion. We're seeing the little bit of wobble in the motion, which you always have, the trochoidal motion it's called, but it's generally heading to this space here between Port Lavaca and Corpus Christi. That's a very unpopulated area there. The Aransas National Wildlife Refuge is right there. The Matagorda Park is right over here. So that would be fantastic. Not that there's nobody there, there's no structures there. There is. But if that's where the worst of it goes, that's great. But still, there's a tremendous water threat throughout this area, and there's a significant wind threat even up here to the north and down to the south in Corpus Christi. And here is the water threat. We're going to talk more about this in a bit, but I just want to give you a little sample. Here's Port Lavaca, and look at the reds in here. All these areas that are red, that is water 9 to 12 feet that they have to be ready for above dry ground. That's a just unbelievable amount of water. Now we're talking up to the second story with the waves on top of that. And just to let you know how vulnerable this area is here, right there was a city. It was a good-sized, functioning city called Indianola that was wiped out by 2 hurricanes in the 19th century, and they moved the capital of the county to Port Lavaca because that area is so vulnerable from storm surge. So there's a long history of disastrous storm surge. Now, here's the latest track from the National Hurricane Center, the 5 o'clock advisory. So here it comes ashore. So the idea is it's starting to weaken overnight. Still a Category 3 hurricane, talking about in the middle of the night when it's at early a.m. Then it moves up here somewhere plus or minus Victoria, north of Corpus. Maybe it bends a little bit to the left, somewhere inland, and the weakening process starts. But even if the system is, say it's there, the circulation is here, and some of it's somewhere here near Texas, but the effects are going to be felt in a much, much wider area here, and those effects certainly include heavy, heavy rain. So here's the latest updated forecast based on the new forecast track. Tremendous rain here where this system is going to sit for the next 5 days, including the western part of the metro Houston area, 24 to 30 inches of rain, and all of the Houston area, at least 1.5 feet of rain, is according to the latest projections. And notice heavy rain on this entire coast as the circulation sits there. And two things are happening. One is it's raining like crazy over the river basins, into the bayous in Houston, into the creeks in metropolitan Houston. That water is trying to run out into Galveston Bay and the other rivers, but the wind is continuing to blow ashore, and that's holding that water in, and that aggravates the flooding problem. All right, we'll talk more about this coming up in just a few minutes. Back to Alex, because there are more threats from Hurricane Harvey. Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. The impact's continuing to climb. Let's get to what we know right now. Right now, a state of disaster declared in more than 24 Texas counties. Harris County, home to Houston, the latest to join the list. Shelters, they're filling up with busloads of evacuees tonight. More than 700 in San Antonio. If you need to find a shelter, use your phone. All you have to do is text shelter and your zip code to 4FEMA, 4FEMA, that's 43362. Also, Coldplay canceled tonight's concert there in Houston. And President Trump announced this afternoon that he is going to head to Texas early next week to visit the hurricane-damaged area. All right, let's get out to Paul Goodlow now, who is in Corpus Christi getting lashed by some of those winds. Paul, it's been a tough time for you to even try to stand upright with those winds that have been so gusty.
It certainly has been. Just check the Naval Air Station, gusting to 70.
One town that has been in hurricanes of the past completely wiped out by surge in this part of Texas. So here is the storm surge warning area from the National Hurricane Center. So here's where we think now the center of Harvey is going to go to shore. Everything on the right side is pushing water from the Gulf of Mexico onshore. Of course, Galveston has a tremendous history with the deadliest hurricane in the history of U.S. hurricanes there, again, with onshore flow pushing there. Now, most of Galveston is a little more fortified than it was back in 1900. So this is where the big storm surge threat's going to be, on the northern end of that storm surge area. But some of these inland areas behind the barrier island are also very threatened by storm surge. I'll show you in a second. So here's the detail of the forecast from the Hurricane Center. There is the big threat zone with water 6 to 12 feet above normally dry ground. So this is inundation we're talking about here, and then on up to around Galveston, just south of Galveston Island, 5 to 8 feet, and 2 to 4 feet, all the way up close to the Louisiana line there. Now, here's where we stand right now, and you can see just out there in the channel, just below Corpus Christi, 3.5 feet above ground now. Already the storm surge is up there, and you can see even south of town, because the water gets into Matagorda Bay and then kind of gets pushed in there and gets trapped in there by these onshore winds. Going far north, you see Port O'Connor is heading for 3 feet, and these numbers are really going to go up. Just give you an idea of where we stand right now. Even up at Galveston Pier, 1.7 feet above the high water line, the high tide line. That's what we're measuring at this point. Now, here's the forecast from the National Hurricane Center in terms of what they think people should prepare for in terms of storm surge. And as Paul was just saying, up here in Corpus Christi,